You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of ZenTech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from ZenTech Consultants. I am Jim, your remarkably handsome and charming host, and with me is my partner.
Sorry, I'm about to toss my cookies.
The cookie tossing host.
It's Rocco.
It's Rocco. See, and that's why
I'm sorry, but that remarkably charming, whatever he just said, that's just let's move on, folks.
See, and this is why I make Rocco suffer through the engineering joke of the week, because he's mean to me that way. So, all right, Rocco, so here we go. Ready? So I tried doing some manual engineering calculations last week, but they came out wrong. Apparently, I was using the wrong pencil. I guess it just wasn't to be. No, nothing.
Oh,
all right, come on. That's a terrible joke. The worse they are, the more I like them. It's the dad in me coming out. All right, so folks, so today we have one of our absolute favorite and recurring guests back on the show, Ramesh Sridharan, the product manager for the Autodesk Infrastructure team, is here once again. So, Ramesh, it's always a pleasure to see you come back in the show, and that you're still silly enough to come back and talk to Rocco and I. So thank you so much for being here, sir.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. All right, so we're going to be talking with Ramesh about ReCap 2024 and its related systems, since that's one of his big responsibilities. But before we get into that, let's as always get Ramesh to kind of reintroduce himself to our audience. All right, sir. Tell him, Ramesh, what are your professional bona fides, and how do you scale the Autodesk corporate ladder the way you have?
Autodesk corporate ladder. I was lazy for the ladder. I took escalator.
Here you go. Take the escalator. Always a smart choice.
Well, my background was in machine learning, image recognition, point cloud data, things like that. I joined Autodesk as a part of one of the acquisition. Wow, almost a decade back. Time flies. So that's how I became part of the Autodesk with the point cloud related stuff, and I did other things. I don't know. It's not like a career advice or something, but I just kept my eyes open for opportunities and get out of my comfort zone. That's how I landed into a PM for reality capture since last year, I believe.
Nice. That'll definitely do it, right? Keeping your eyes open, your ear to the ground, and doing the hard work. So it's always a good thing. So, all right. So I tell you what, let's start today by getting into what exactly it is Ramesh is focused on over on the Autodesk side of the fence, right? I kind of want to get some detail, I guess, about what direction he's helping to steer the Autodesk infrastructure ship, so that we can all stay on board and not kind of get dragged under that software titan's rudder. So, Ramesh, what's your primary focus on these days within that infrastructure space?
If I were to put a rubber band and say one topic, I would say existing condition. This one thing came up in one of the customer meetings recently. When you want to go somewhere, you put the destination in your Google Maps or Apple Maps or something. It gives you the path to complete your destination. But one thing we take it for granted is our current location, which is very important for this whole journey. And from the infrastructure project's point of view, that current location is the existing condition. You need to know what exactly you have, where exactly things are, so that you can design properly and achieve what you want to achieve, whatever the infrastructure project may be. And how to capture those and access and leveraging this existing condition is my main focus. It can be as a reality capture, where now there are various different ways you can collect the data and point cloud data and bring it in, indoors, outdoors. You can put a backpack and walk by. Or it could be a GIS data, especially for Autodesk designers and modelers, how to get those GIS information of the existing condition leverage it quickly without jumping through multiple hoops as well. So that's kind of my primary focus. I think last time when we discussed, I had some other things like a geotechnical data and other things, but some of the other product managers are taking care of it nowadays. These two are the main ones under me right now.
Yeah, and those are great too, because I think particularly in the infrastructure space, that existing condition structure is so vital to us, right? I know architects and some of the engineers, they can get away with working in a free floating open space, right? It doesn't matter. It's going to be from the building envelope in. But when you're dealing infrastructure, man, you better have those existing conditions in place, and they better be correct, or the whole design is not going to work. So it is an important focus. So, okay. All right, so Rocco, let's wake you up over there, even though I don't want to because you were mean to me at the top of the show. But so while we have Ramesh's attention, what areas kind of do you hear from our civil survey infrastructure clients? What are they focusing on that might kind of help direct some of Ramesh's focus moving forward?
Yeah, a lot of it is. I kind of feel like a lot of my discussions are with folks that are kind of behind the eight ball and just trying to keep up with project work, and unfortunately, I don't hear enough of folks taking advantage of the great technology that's available within the AEC collection with ReCap and all the work that Ramesh is doing. That doesn't mean that I'm speaking for everybody. We certainly don't talk to everybody out there, but a lot of what I hear is that just folks are they're scrambling to catch up. And so my answer to them a lot of times is, well, like really take a look at some of the great stuff that's within the 2023 releases, 2024 releases now, because there's a lot of productivity gains that they can get by utilizing some of this technology, and they're paying for it. So, let's put the technology to use, and that's kind of my pitch.
Okay, I think that works. All right, so let's get into ReCap 2024 here, right, and what its new features and functions are. Ramesh always has a lot of good tips on better ways of integrating ReCap kind of into your daily workflow. And I have no doubt that he has been taking that, his group down that path to bigger and better tools in this latest release as well. So Ramesh, I know you guys did add a lot of great features to ReCap in the past few releases, right? So what was kind of the big new focus for it in 2024?
Absolutely. It's just like Rocco mentioned on some aspect, how to put the technology to its better use. And one of the things in the point cloud industry, the reality capture industry, is the data management problem. I don't think it's news for you guys and not a news for all the audience of your podcast. Point clouds are huge. And since the inception, you know what I'm saying? Since the inception of the point cloud era, is about 25 years back?
Yep.
People always kind of sidestep on, you can get a more disk space or external hard drive, USB 3, solid state, faster network speed, all those things people try to sidestep just to get what they want to do at that point in time. But in spite of all, problems still persist. People having data transfer problem, data handling problem, managing and retrieval, all those things. This is the only easy way I can actually compare this is anybody who uses, it doesn't matter, Google Photos or Apple Photos. When you take a picture, you upload it, it's pretty easy, right? We can all do it. If a few years later, if you look at it, the Google will send you a message, you are running out of space. And you'll see like 100 GB of photos and videos. You have no idea when you collected them, it's still there. And if you want to look through it, you have to parse through on all those things. The point cloud's having a similar thing. It's very easy to collect now, but handling them is a big problem. So that is one of the things. The data management is a crux of the thing, how to get users leverage their reality capture data as best as possible. We've been paving this road for quite some time. Even in 2023 and 2022 versions of ReCap, we added some foundations, and that's kind of culminating in this release, not only for a visualization, using the technology, like Rocco said, putting to better use for the visualization, sharing of the point cloud data through the cloud, but we kind of added, how about user can extract some information from it, from the cloud itself? Where do I have to download it again? So that's kind of a path we are actually taking. That's a big new focus in 2024.
Yeah, and that's vitally important. Yeah, that ability to be able to go in and parse out and pull only what you need when you need it from just unbelievably massive amounts of data and information is really, really important. So, all right. So, to my mind, a really big part of any upgrade, it's not just the new functionality, right? That's always the fun part and the interesting part. But it's also about how well it integrates with or kind of enhances what I've always done. In other words, I don't want to have to relearn a whole new process from the ground up. I want the latest and greatest to also enhance what I already know how to do, right? And how to make the data that I already have in place, just easier to access and manipulate and work with. So, Ramesh, I guess with that in mind, what was released in April, right? And how is it connected, I guess, to the previous versions?
Absolutely, Jim. So that is what you kind of hit it right on the nail. With the new versions and new features, how to make the user life easier. It's always easy to come up with 10 different UIs, make it like what's the old style? Wizard, we used to call it, right? 10, 20 years back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so wizard kind of a thing, you can go through it. That part is actually not that hard to create it. But from the customer point of view, it's kind of pain in the neck. So how to make this UI and UX a little bit easier, but at the end of the day, as a user, you should be able to get what you want to get out of the stuff. That is kind of a motto we are also having in Autodesk, especially in the ReCap team. But new UIs it's not avoidable. That sometimes the new workflows need some new interface, but make that easier. In that aspect, the three things, main thing came up in April. The number one is ability to filter out noises in the point cloud data and just go to the ground or the surface points, take it to design. As a user, I know that a lot of points are there. Right now, as a civil engineer, for example, I want those ground points, either I collected through the drone or what means I want to get the surface so my engineering work or the designers can start working on it. So that automatic classification or automatic filtering of the point cloud data in the ReCap Pro is one thing we added in the previous version of 23.1. 24.0 that came out last month. We enhanced it quite a bit to make it seamless and smooth experience. The other one is interoperability. It's not just we are changing, all the other sensors are also keep updating, like a Faro and Optec and all those guys, Leica. So we added some capability of getting the latest Faro sensor data. Whatever they have latest and greatest, you collect it, but you should be able to use it, right? Then what's the point of collecting? That support of diverse data was also added in this 24.0 release. And the main feature of that for 24.0 release is, like I said, mentioned before, the extracting road brake line information or infrastructure brake lines information from the cloud viewer and take it into Civil 3D or Revit or wherever as a land XML or a DXF file is one of the key things we actually released in the previous version, in the 24.0.
Yeah, those are immense. Like you said, the ability to bring in that civil infrastructure stuff and separate out the horizontal from the vertical designs and add the brake lines. It's taken us to a whole new level. And I think if, folks who are listening, if you guys haven't looked at ReCap over the last few years, you really need to go back and revisit that. So it's got some really remarkable stuff that Ramesh's team has been putting out. All right, so I tell you what, let's take a quick break to hear from today's sponsor. And when we get back, we'll get Ramesh to talk to us a little bit about what's coming up in the future of ReCap. All right, folks, stand by. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hey, everybody, it's Jim and Rocco from ZenTech Consultants, and I want to talk to you guys today about our new Zen Pipe for Civil 3D pressure networks. Look, the Civil 3D pressure pipe system is a powerful tool set, but anybody who's ever used it is going to tell you the same three things. One, it needs more pipes and fittings and tools to use in the real world. Two, those parts need to be much easier to work with and label. And three, nobody has the time or energy to build custom pressure pipe parts on their own. And that's why we've developed ZenPipe for Civil 3D pressure networks. All right, it's a catalog of over 600 plus pipes, fittings, appurtenances, and everything you need to intelligently design and label and work with your pressure network. So Rocco, tell folks how they can find out more about our ZenPipe tools.
Yeah, hit up our website at zentechconsultants.net. It's ZENTEK consultants.net. give us a call at 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email at sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go. ZenPipe for Civil 3D pressure networks. If you work in the civil site world, you need this tool. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking with Ramesh from Autodesk about the new 2024 recap drop and the tools and the features related to it. And in this half, I kind of want to get into where Ramesh is kind of steering, recap development moving forward. But before we go down that path, I wanted to hit on one particular item, which is Esri integration into the infrastructure space. This is a huge deal to a lot of our listeners, and Ramesh is the man on top of this subject over at Autodesk. So I kind of want to know what's going on with that, right? So what about it, my friend? What's going on with the Esri Autodesk world in this new release?
Absolutely, man. So we've been working on that Esri data, fluent data connection with the Esri cloud in Autodesk software for last few years, actually, since in 2017 or 18, when both the companies announced a partnership. We called it a connector for ArcGIS. It's available in Civil 3D, Map 3D, InfraWorks. Those are three main platforms it's available. So we got a very good feedback. And we got to put some enhancement requests too. Like when the data comes into Civil 3D, it's not just the data and the attributes, which already come in, but for Civil 3D folks, they want it to be stylized the way they want it to be stylized, so that when data come in, it comes in the way they want it to, so they can continue the work. They don't want to spend another half an hour or something to just sit and stylize the data. Completely understandable. Yeah. So that's exactly what we added in this version in 24.0. So now with the connector for ArcGIS, you can connect it to Esri's cloud. It could be ArcGIS Online or your enterprise portal, doesn't matter. You can get your feature services and the raster services like a terrain and the images. That's also possible. And when the data come in, you can stylize the way you want. It could be based on the query or the layer type or the layer. You have multiple options, very, very flexible for you to do that. It could be separate point groups, and all those things are available. And also in this release, cool part is the previous versions, we supported only the Civil 3D objects. When the data come in as a point lines or polygons from Esri, Esri doesn't care. It's all point lines and polygons. But in Civil 3D, it matters what type of a feature type you're using. So now in this 24.0, you can assign them as a AutoCAD objects as well. So that's also possible. And another cool part for civil engineers, they would love this, is support of spirals and curves. In the previous version, it was all tessellated because of the way it was stored. And now the SDK is available from Esri side. Now you can get it as a curves as well, whatever you store it. That's a great boost as well. And performance, we always work on the performance. There are significant performance improvements, but that's behind the screen. But I would like to shout out to that. These are all for the connector for ArcGIS, but for those who are following us on Esri and Autodesk, we actually jointly came up with a solution called GeoBIM, where it's a cloud-based app. I think Esri calls it as a GeoBIM app, where you can bring the BIM information from Autodesk. It's anything on your ACC or the BIM 360 cloud, your Revit models or the Navisworks model or Civil 3D drawing or InfraWorks model for that matter, anything to the Esri side, anything on your project you're working on the Esri side, ArcGIS Pro-based web maps or whatnot, all of them can be linked and visualized in one location called as a GeoBIM app. That's been in the market for quite some time, at least a year, I believe, maybe less than a year. If any of your podcast audience did not check it out, please check it out. That's actually a great stuff for the project manager or anyone in the project level person have a visibility of complete project, irrespective of Autodesk, the design side or GIS side. This GeoBIM will actually cater their needs.
Very nice, man. I got to tell you, I absolutely love, right? It seems a simple thing, but it's been so long that we have been begging for that ability to bring in that GIS data, not just as, polygons on a single layer with, tessellated curves and just so simple things. It just takes it to a whole whole other level and saves so much time and aggravation. So my inner geek is very excited by that. I think that's awesome. So, look, I always think it's important to get input into where the folks at Autodesk think the industry is going so that, our listeners have an opportunity to kind of start thinking about and prepping for potential workflow changes, right, that they may see in the near future. And I'll also be honest and just admit that my inner tech geek always wants to know what cool new tools Ramesh is working on. So let's start with ReCap specifically, Ramesh. What's the future of ReCap over the next year or two as you see it?
Absolutely. One of the overarching vision, if you have to put it in a very simplistic terms, my team and us want to make the point clouds as any other data source people use casually. And the point cloud acts like a luxury item nowadays. It's always been a luxury item. When you collect it, it seems so simple. I have a sensor, I put it in the middle of the room or middle of the intersection, I collect it, I bring it in, and it all sounds simple and easy. But once you have the data, very few in an organization can actually touch it and use it just because of the sheer size of it. Others don't know what to do with it. So this became like it's not an elite item, but you know what I'm saying, the way people are accessing it. So we are trying to change that dynamics a little bit, make it easily accessible. The one of the keywords as a team we are thinking in our mind is accessing point cloud anytime, anywhere. In the project or anywhere in the office is the key thing there. The latest versions I told you guys how you can publish the point cloud data now into ACC and visualize it and share it. That's been there from 2023.0, and now in the 24, a month back, we added the capability to extract the features again from the cloud. It's funny. One of the user was telling me they were able to do this visualization and extraction based on the iPad Pro. They were literally sitting on their back of their house, backyard is looking into the beach. They're sitting in the backyard and they're using their iPad Pro and looking at the point clouds, and they can extract features, measure things.
That's amazing. Yeah. There was a day when it literally would have set an iPad on fire to try and access that much data.
Yeah. So that's exactly what kind of we're going towards. So how to make the point cloud data easily accessible. That's like a casual data source so everybody can use it. So from right now, the technology right now, what we have, you can do it already, but we want to push it to the next level where we call it as a scan to design. The one I mentioned before, extracting of features, we call it as a scan to design because we're extracting the vector elements from the point cloud data. So, scan to design. Make that more comprehensive so that any infrastructure projects, roads, railroads, anything, intersections, anything you want, they can extract what they want. But also we are embarking on the scan to BIM projects as well. I know scan to BIM has been in the industry for quite some time. People used it in various different ways. Right now, if you go and look for it, most of the scan to BIM is basically a point cloud mesh. I look at it, people started calling it as a scan to BIM. But what we truly are referring is extracting the 3D objects from the point cloud data you see as a 3D parametric models or something. Like, for example, let's say you take a sensor you collect in your room. Right now where you guys are sitting. There's a walls, doors, and windows, and there are tables, and maybe microphones, and the computers or not. All those things are there, and we want them to segment that into individual pieces, convert them into corresponding 3D models, so you actually have a virtual model of the data you just collected as a 3D parametric model. So you can use it for your existing conditions for, in this case, since they use building, you can use for building renovation or whatnot. Or it could be a fun part. You can move things around, see how you can reposition it, or how to use your spaces more efficiently. All those things you can do only when you have a true scan to BIM. So that's exactly what we are trying to do. And we're trying to do that as much simple as possible. Jim, you mentioned before, like the new versions come, it should augment the work experience. It should not make people to learn the completely new thing. And we should not be making the civil engineers and architects to be a point cloud experts. We're not trying to change their career. They are good at what they are doing. So we should help them not to make more file copies or more data splitting. We're not trying to make them point cloud experts, but how to make the data feed the information that what they want, not just the mere raw data. So that's kind of the direction we are going in a year or two. We are kind of embarking towards this better scan to design, better scan to BIM workflows through ACC or BIM 360 Cloud.
I love that concept. I mean, like you said, particularly if that existing condition, if we can get to a point where, hey, we just, we go out, we scan, we bring in, and it automatically generates, existing roadway corridors for us, right? And our catch basins for us. And it, things like that. Oh man, what a game changer that would be. So I love where you're thinking. I love that concept. So, okay. So Rocco, look, whenever we have Ramesh on, I always ask you the same question. And I don't think that Ramesh ever likes your answer. But do you see a lot of clients who are moving into the point cloud and the reality capture space, or do you think that the adoption is still lagging behind where it should be?
Yeah, it's still lagging, but obviously for those of you guys that are listening to us, I mean, the technology is moving, and it's moving at a rapid pace. So, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people over the years who say, it's an area I want to get into, but it's going to kill my PC, and it's going to take forever to run this point cloud. And, so they're kind of like, they've been following the trends, but not jumped into it yet. So I think more and more folks are starting to pay attention to this, and obviously with these advancements that Ramesh is talking about, it's exciting. So let's put it to work, guys. I mean, again, you've got it at your fingertips, so it's about making it work.
There you go. And I agree 100%. I mean, I think that's what it is, and I think Ramesh is absolutely dead on with what he said. That the hold up in my mind is that people don't want to become point cloud data scientists. They don't want to do that. It's too much time, too much effort. But when the route that Ramesh is leading this, where it's point and click, and it's a tool that makes much more information faster and easier for you to access, I think that's when we're going to see a real paradigm shift in how many people are accessing that data. So, all right. So you know what, folks, the great thing about having Ramesh on, other than the fact that he's entertaining and helps me make fun of Rocco, is that Ramesh wears a lot of hats, right? And he has his fingers in a lot of different pies over in Autodesk land. And everyone else we talk to from Autodesk, they try to stay within their own little realm of responsibility. But Ramesh seems to be the guy who is working on everything at once. So I get to pump him for a broader range of answers. So, Ramesh, in terms of the infrastructure space and Autodesk in general, what's the path you see them heading down, both in this release and in future ones, that you think are going to have a real big impact on kind of the design build world?
Wow, that's a heavy question. Yeah, so I think I kind of queued it up for this, maybe indirectly. If you had to put it as a very keyword, it's access data anytime, anywhere. Actually, like I mentioned before, even in the last AU, the CEO of Autodesk gave us talk about pharma and flow and all those things. The idea basically is, when let's take ReCap for example. If let's say Rock was working on a project, and if I'm asking for him to show me the existing conditions, he's going to send me a OneDrive or some location of the point cloud data, right? So basically, you'll be sending a file that I can download, or I can use it and see it. But we should start moving beyond the file. Bygones are the era of the file, because when you work with the file-based workflows, you work on a subset of a project. Which works for some of the workflows like designing and all. I'm not saying anything wrong about that. But in the bigger picture, when you focus on the data, you not only work, you should start focusing on the data, not on the file part. So when you do that, you not only work on the whole project, but also the other project that might have been connected to this. You get the really wholesome experience to leverage and do your work as best as possible. It's a project, infrastructure project-wise, not just like a local area-based workflows. So that's kind of where both ReCap, infrastructure space, even Autodesk for that matter, going towards. We call it as a pharma, and we call it a different technology, technical terms. But the idea here is have the cloud as a single source of truth. You can access from anywhere, anytime, and more fluently you can create, deliver, and leverage all the data you have. And that's what I think they're going towards. When you talk about the project information, sending a bunch of files or links to download ain't going to cut it. Those information should be combined like in a form of a dashboard where user can interact it, you can query it, you can simulate it. And I'm a big fan of that. Having the data there, with the query and simulate is obvious ones. I also like that AR VR type. If I change it, what will happen? If I add this, what will happen? That's where you get more creative. That's where the innovations can happen in the infrastructure industries too. We've been trying to use the same different workflows again and again, which works great, but the whole world is changing. Population is changing. We need the new ideas. These kind of having a 3D environment where they can plug in and plug out things and see the effect of it makes our whole industry can move up. That's a bigger scale. I think we should start working towards, and we should not work on silos anymore. I would say that's the direction we should be moving, and we are moving.
And I think I agree with you 100%. The idea of centralized data store where there's only that one location to go for data and everybody's access and modifying in the same locale. Wow, yeah. What a time and trouble saver that will be when we get there. That's always been the dream.
Sorry. So it's also more than that, right? You're right. So let's take, for example, a transportation project. When you work, let's say you're working on a new road section. The key things are, the crown of the road, the super elevation, water flows, and many more. That lot of different things come into the road design. I'm not trying to minimize that at all. But now with the new challenges we're facing in the world, we need more information, more things to be addressed, like a sustainability, like the carbon footprint of that construction, the efficiency. Can we use any existing ones? Can we restrain with the space because I cannot have too many lanes on a downtown road? Accessibility, so that people can walk or bicycle or something to that instead of everyone has to drive. So there are a lot of new conditions and constraints are popping everywhere. We need to have that wholesome, broader vision to bring all those things to data and center and make it accessible to solve that. And the good thing is we have it. We, in the sense, every organization have those pieces of data one way or the other. You call it a GIS or the geometry or some DWG file or Revit file or whatnot. It's like the constant thing I would say is it's like having a lot of pieces in the cake, but there's not a simple way to eat it. And then what's the point of having the cake, right?
Absolutely. It's like having the eggs and the flour and the sugar all sitting in bowls next to each other. Doesn't really get you a good cake till you mix them all together and make something wonderful out of it. I like that. It's a great analogy. Yeah, I'm excited by this whole idea.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going towards. This I can call it a scan to beam, scan to what are the technical term I can throw in. At the end of the day, it basically help everyone to leverage the data they have and do their project in the infrastructure wide. That's not any company specific stuff. Infrastructure wide, people should be going towards such solutions.
I love that. I love it. So, all right, folks. So as always, all right, our guest gets the last word on this show as kind of a thank you for putting up with us. And Ramesh has done it many times, so he gets an extra long answer here today. So whatever he wants to say. So, Ramesh, what else do you want to tell our listeners, about that we didn't cover in the questions today?
Let me think. It's really hard with you guys. You guys kind of pull the answer out one way or the other. It's hard to save something for the last. The funny part, I was talking to someone last couple of months. I had some customer interviews, and the guys were saying that, well, I know you, Ramesh. I heard a lot about from the Cattle Call podcast. So you guys are actually creating a fan base for me, so I really appreciate that.
No problem. That's good. I'm glad somebody actually listens to us. It's not just me and Rocco sitting here by ourselves.
So the last thing, well, actually, you know what, this point I have in my mind. So last thing I would say for the listeners is this, there's every stage in every industry, there's a revolution happened, right? Right now, we are in the middle of the technological revolution. A lot of new technology comes in very easy, which we never envisioned 15 years back or 20 years back. Last 2 decades did a great job. And it's not just the companies play a role, the users play a huge role as well. Without their adoption, feedback, and interest to push things to the next level, this revolution will not be a successful one. I always go back and think, if in whatever the year when the Ford came up with this horseless carriages, what they call it, quadricycles or something. It used to travel like 10 miles per hour, 15
Yeah.
miles per hour. Yeah, and those days, if the users come and say, it's not that fast enough, I'll use my horse or keep walking. I don't need the car. Then the automobile industry and all the technology industry won't come up. It would have the same way what it is today. And the same thing, if Steve Jobs gave his iconic presentation of introducing the iPhone in 2006, 2007, if all the users just say, well, I already have my camera and my foldable phones, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to buy any more that. I'm not going to support this technology. Then we won't have the touchscreen phones we are using today. It won't be the same way, at least. Similarly, in the infrastructure industry, those are at least a small piece of equipment. It's easy to move with the public, but infrastructure industry has been there for quite some time. People are used to their ideas. People are used to the way they've been doing, but that should not become a bottleneck. That should not become a baggage for us moving forward in the future. So I would strongly recommend and encourage and request users to be more proactive, try new workflows, encourage development folks to push the technology to the limit, and kind of have an open mind, try different techniques and stuff, and see how you can push your project and push us to deliver a better software as well. From recap perspective, this is fantastic. Now the cloud storage is available, the fast internet speed, and those are all the things make it a perfect ripe to leverage these large data sets. Autodesk is definitely pushing its limits to make some breakthrough, and that's exactly what I was. I'll ask all the users to try those point cloud data, try those reality capture, making it easy to collect nowadays, and provide some active feedback. And again, I'm talking not just an Autodesk guy. I'm talking as an industry guy. The whole industry has to move this thing forward if all of us will be successful. I think that's one thing I would probably put it out there, man.
I like that, and it's great. And I'll even go so far as to say, look, back in the early part of this century, right, Autodesk had some bad PR because they were not always responsive to customer feedback. And I have to say that over the last decade, I have been part of this and watched guys like you, Ramesh, and Tim Yaros, and Kim Furman, and a whole bunch of the other folks over there at Autodesk who have really kind of put your feet in the ground and said, look, we've got to integrate with industry and with our clients and really open up, right, and let them drive where we're developing. So I think that's a great kudos to Autodesk for finally opening up and doing that. I think it still holds a little bit of that reputation in some folks' mind, but I do think that there's been a big change in the way that you guys work with the public, and I think that's credit to you guys for doing that. So, all right, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So I was about to absolutely, yeah. I think you brought up a very good point. Yeah, so a lot of things have changed, and we're actively looking for the feedbacks, and we actually listen to them. We get way too many feedback, so we have to filter it out at some level.
Sure.
But we actually listen to them. We actually try to make as much as possible, and to do that, you're right. I think there's always scope for improvement, but we really strongly encourage customers to provide the feedback so that we can build the right thing at the right way.
Absolutely. All right. I guess with that, we're going to wrap it up for today. But I do want to thank Ramesh once more for being here. Ramesh, you're always a great guest, and we appreciate all the time that you give us here on the Cattle Call. All right, sir?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, guys. We're out. We'll catch you next time on the Cattle Call podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.